Good afternoon, and welcome back to Asgard, and welcome to the first episode of our 1.10 spotlight for the mod Abyssalcraft. So for those of you that don't know, Abyssalcraft is a mod that adds an absolute ton of new content in the form of new world gen, new mobs, new dimensions, plural, new magic, new machines, all kinds of stuff. Absolute ton of stuff. If you look through JEI, you'll notice that there's 3 tabs here filled with things, and some of the mechanics work a lot different than anything we've seen prior. So we'll get into all of that. I'm thinking we'll do these episodes a bit shorter than normal spotlights that I do. We'll do them like 10 or 15 minutes each, depending on the content of the episode. That way, if you're looking for a specific mechanic or way to progress in the mod, you can jump straight to the video, covering what you're wanting to get into. So this first episode, I just want to talk about the world gen and some of the basics of the mod. You'll see a couple different trees here, and they both have, different woods and different leaves, and here is the planks and the wood that come from these types. The first one is the Darklands Oak. Now this one can be found in the overworld, and you'll find it in any of the, occasionally, not always, I don't see any around here. This is a Darklands plain biome that I'm in right now that's added with the mod. But that's where you're going to find the oak, the Darklands oak, is in these plains and stuff. And they do drop saplings and all that good stuff. Now, you'll notice they don't generally have a whole lot of leaves. So sometimes you can potentially see a loss in saplings, especially when you automate it. So just be aware of that. And then the Dreadlands wood actually comes from a later dimension, but I wanted to go ahead and show off some of the blocks. Like, not all of these are obtained in the overworld, but once we get into the other dimensions, we'll be covering a bit more in-depth mechanics. So I don't want to spend a lot of time once we get to that, covering the additional blocks. But these are some additional blocks that are added. I just put them down the brick forms, but there's other, there's stairs and slabs and all that good stuff with these blocks. Also chiseled variants for some of them and so on. So, also we have some ore gen. Now these are all spawned in the overworld. We have Abyssal Knight, which is a brand new ore that's added with the mod, and you can actually get Abyssal ingots, right here, Abyssal Knight ingots. From that, you also have Corellium that drops Corellium gems, and then you also have Niter, which of course will be present with other mods. It's all ore gen and everything. There's also a couple additional ores that are added within the mod. There's like Dreadlands versions of Abyssal Knight, and there's some other versions of Corellium, and there is also some variants for some of the later dimensions for like gold, iron, tin, copper, etc. So, but I didn't throw those out because those are just standard, gold is gold kind of a thing. We also have some armor types. Now, not all of these are craftable with overworld mechanics or overworld materials, but of course with JEI you can look at it and say, like, the Dreadlands samurai helmet, for example, you're going to craft like this, and it's all just basic crafting stuff. So these are the different armors that are added, and some of the weapons and stuff that are added. The armor that I'm actually wearing at the moment is this samurai-based armor, and it has a katana that actually goes with that set. And you'll notice that when you're wearing it, you get some buffs here. But I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on the armor, because that's all pretty well standard stuff. Also, some of the mobs add these heads in. It's mainly the ghouls, which we'll cover the mobs that are spawned with this mod here in just a little bit. But they can drop these heads, which of course you can use to decorate your house or whatever with those skulls. Also, there's 2 new liquids that are added with the mod. There is liquid Corellium, which this does not spawn in the overworld. This will actually, you'll start seeing this in the first dimension that we go to, which is the Abyssal Wasteland. This stuff, if you jump into it, you will get Corellium Plague, which will do a bit of damage to you. So just be aware of that. It can also be used to create like cobblestone when it hits lava and different stuff like that. But then there is also Antimatter, which this stuff you can actually find in the overworld. It's in a new biome called the overworld, or the Corellium Plagued Swamp biome. And you'll find this underground usually in like underground little pools and caves and stuff like that, is where you're going to find this stuff. Now, what's unique about this stuff, you do not want to jump into it because it will kill you in a matter of a few seconds. Its damage is pretty comparable to lava. Also, whenever you jump into it, you'll notice that we get an antimatter debuff, blindness, weakness, hunger, and slow when we get into this stuff. So it's very, very nasty. You do not want to jump into it. Now, there is a couple caveats to this stuff, though. So, for example, if we were to grab, say, oops, I don't want him. I want like a pig and maybe a creeper. If you drop animals into that, you'll notice that it becomes an anti-pig. And there we go. Basically, these anti-pigs, if we go into Game Mode S, you'll notice that it doesn't attack me or anything. And all the animal types have their own anti-variant. So, also mobs have an anti-variant. Just like that. And these anti-creepers have a fairly decent explosion radius. They're pretty stout too. You'll notice they have a lot of health. And then in addition, if you get killed by it and you come back, you'll actually find an anti-player that actually has your equipment and stuff. So just be aware that can actually be kind of dangerous. So I would not suggest that you jump into that and die. And then, by the way, this biome that I'm in right now, like I said, is a Darklands Plains biome. And Darklands, there's variants for things like forests and mountains and extreme hills, things like that. If we go over here, we have a Darklands Highlands. And, it's pretty much the same. It's basically just this purple grass. And here's actually one of the new mobs that are added, which is these Abyssal Zombies. Now, these are actually aggressive towards standard zombies. So if I was to drop a zombie here, he's looking at him. He's thinking about it. There he goes. So he's going to start attacking and killing that zombie. And he's actually going to prioritize other zombies over you. But you'll notice that whenever he kills that zombie, it becomes an Abyssal Zombie at full health. So they can actually spread the horde very, very well. Now, one thing to note, these Abyssal Zombies don't target and attack normal villagers, though. So, whereas normal zombies, of course, are going to attack and kill standard villagers, but these will not do that. Anyway, we also have Darklands Mountains, and these are actually very, very important. This is the only place that you're going to find shadow creatures, which we'll get into that in just a minute, and what those are used for. But those are very, very important for your progression with the mod and whatnot. And then we also have, well, before I get into that, we have a little bit of world generation. These little temple things are... you'll find these occasionally in Darkland biomes. Inside of them, there's just an enchantment table with some books here. So, if you're starting out and you come across one of these, I do suggest you snag that enchantment table. Also, we have these, which you'll actually come across these. These are fairly common. And if you go inside of them, you'll notice they're filled with these lesser Shoggoths. And then there's also this Shoggoth biomass, which is basically where the Shoggoths spawn from. And this stuff can slowly depreciate and start to despawn as it spawns more and more Shoggoths. Alright, to actually begin progressing with this mod, what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to lure these Shoggoths out of here, because naturally, they don't generally leave their den, but you can aggro them and bring them out. I've actually got one out here that's been running around. You'll notice that they spawn this Shoggoth ooze, and basically it's going to happen as they walk over areas. So for example, if I knock this one around a little bit, you'll see he's spreading this ooze. Now, another thing that you can do if you have them is get something like a soul vial or something to that effect. You could even set up a spawner and just let them run wild. I've actually done that before. But if we take these, we'll set a few of these out. Now, they're also aggroed by any kind of domesticated animal. Oh, that one's coming out on his own now. Sometimes they will. But for example, if I was to take and throw down, say, a pig right here, this is going to be a massacre. But, yeah. See, they're going to run around and they're just going to murder said pig. Basically, you want to cover a big area with this ooze. Now, I do not suggest that you do this near your base because this will... this is pretty much like a really bad infection that's about to happen to the land. They get bigger too when they eat pigs, just for the record. If you notice, they've all gotten like massive. That's from eating pigs. But basically think of like Thaumcraft's Tainted Biomes, but way worse. Okay, there's one. So we just heard that hammer hitting. What happens is, as these Shoggoths spread the terrain, and generally after you see one of these spawn, yeah, they'll start spawning in a lot quicker. Like there's another one over there. So what's going to happen when these guys start to really build up in a small area, they're going to spawn these monolith stone structures. They're basically just little towers. There's nothing in the middle or anything. But at the top they have these statues. And these are all different gods from the Lovecraft mythos. And so we've got Hastur, we've got Yog-Sothoth, and over here we have Shub-Niggurath. So, and over there, I believe... Who is this? Azathoth. There's also Cthulhu, there's Nether Lotap, and there's a fair number of them altogether. Let's see, we've got Cthulhu, Hastur, Jazahar, Azathoth, Nether Lotap, Yog-Sothoth, and Shub-Niggurath. So you have a fair number of these altogether, 7 different ones that can spawn. And this is what you're actually going to need to begin progressing with the mod, really. There's another one. And by the way, if you take these statues and you just put them into a crafting table, you'll get a decorative version. Basically, it's not going to do anything as far as your energy generation, which we'll get into next episode, but it is just for decor. And also, by the way, another thing that you'll probably want is the Necronomicon. Fairly easy to craft, and this is pretty much your guide to the mod, everything that you're going to cover. But also you'll notice that it says 0 out of 5,000 PE. That is the energy, and then the Necronomicon is how you're going to store that PE and actually use it for your rituals. So anyway, once you get these statues spawned up, you'll want to break a few of these and take them home with you. And the more that you get, the better, because it'll speed up the whole process of getting your PE energy built up and everything. Alright, and the last thing that I want to cover this episode is the mobs that will naturally occur within the overworld. So we've already seen the Abyssal Zombie, but you'll also notice there is this big guy. They're burning. Let me set it to night, actually. So the Abyssal Zombie, of course, we've already covered that one. But the Depths Ghoul, you'll notice this one's actually named Pete. But the Depths Ghoul, there is actually like 3... No, there's more than 3, I think. Because I know there's Dr. Orange, there's Pete... and I know there's Mr. Wilson. Okay, so there's 3. There's Pete, Mr. Wilson, and Dr. Orange. Those are all like mini-boss versions. They're not really all that much tougher, but they can drop their corresponding head when you kill them. Yeah, there's Mr. Wilson. And so basically these guys are going to generally spawn in Darkland type biomes. Both the Abyssal Zombie and Pete, and the Depth School, are going to spawn in any of the Darklands biomes. However, there's also these shadow creatures that I mentioned before that are only going to spawn in the mountains. And the shadow creatures actually don't burn up from the sun like the zombies do and the Depth School do. So for example, if we set it over to day and I spawn one of these guys, they're not going to burn in the sun. However, they generally try to avoid the sunlight. And so you're generally going to find them underground in like caves or anything like that, in kind of underground open area. So there's 3 different tiers to these. There's the shadow creature, which when you kill it, it's fairly weak, and you're going to get yourself a couple of these shadow fragments. Oops. And then if you come across a shadow monster, which is like the 2nd tier, they have 50 health, so they take a few more hits. And you'll notice, well, we only got 2 that time, but they can give up to around 5 in my experience of those shadow shards. Then there's also the Shadow Beast. Now this one has 100 health. He's a bit tougher. He's also fairly uncommon to find in my experience. But you'll notice that he drops a whole Shadow Gem, which these are actually 9 Shadow Shards. So, and to actually progress with the mod, you're going to need a number of these shadow gems. So you're going to need a number of these shadow shards. Now, there is one other way to get those, and that is the Staff of Rending. Now, honestly, I don't personally suggest this method because it's really not worth it, in my opinion. But if you run across, say, a shadow creature and have this Staff of Rending on you, what you can do is you can right-click, and you'll take half a heart of his health off, and you'll get 1 point of shadow energy. Now, you'll notice it says 7 out of 200. After you get 200 shadow energy, you will get a shadow gem. But honestly, it's a whole lot easier. What I do with these guys is I'll just snag one in a soul vial and make a spawner, you know, and just set that up, and then you're good on shadow shards. But I will say that if you don't do that, if you're actually trying to go out and farm them, it does take an extremely long time, because sometimes you'll go long periods of time without ever having one spawn. So they can be kind of tough to come across. So anyway, with that said, I think I'm going to end out this first episode. Next episode, we'll come back and we'll talk about PE generation and usage, and how to control that PE energy that we talked about with the Necronomicon and stuff, as well as how to move it around your base, how to generate it, all that good stuff. So anyway, I hope that this was helpful to you. And of course, if you guys have any questions or anything, feel free to let me know. We will be doing quite a fair number of these. I'm thinking probably about 4 or 5 episodes to cover everything that's within the mod. There is a lot of mechanics coming up, and even just the basics of it are actually pretty in-depth to really get started and get moved to your first dimension. So I hope you guys join me for that. And as always, if you enjoyed the video, be sure and hit that like button and go ahead and subscribe if you're not already for more daily videos. And until next time, do take care, and I hope to see you guys then.